winners. Let the pros show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a regular contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the online betting industry. Together, they lead PickNation.com, your #1 source for winners.
Hi everyone, Al DeMarco here, flying solo today for this week's edition of the Countdown to Kickoff program. As Steve Budin, my normal co-host, couldn't make this week's episode, but listen, we've got plenty of football games to break down because this is the only nationally televised show that breaks down all your top NFL games from a point spread perspective. And I know I've made you money the past couple weeks just with the free picks I've been giving you here on the show, and cashing with my best bet selections as well. Listen, guys, I've been a professional sports handicapper for 25 years. Before that, though, I served my time as a sports reporter, spent 8 years covering athletes in the locker room, on the field, around coaches, managers, and all those experiences really have shaped my philosophy when it comes to handicapping games, and it's what's made me successful as I entered this season, having won 9 of the past 10 seasons. But I'll be the first one to tell you, in this business, it's what have you done for me lately? And that's the same thing that applies to most of these teams as well. The past doesn't really count. All that matters is who's got the hot hand and who's got the winning team in Vegas. We are going to take a look at your top games today, but the key thing that you've got to remember here, in the closing weeks of the season, motivation. Which teams have something to play for? Naturally, you have teams like the Seattle Seahawks that are holding on to the final wild card berth in the NFC, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are hot in Seattle's pursuit. They have something to play for. You have other teams that are jockeying for playoff position, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Broncos, the Patriots, etc. But then you have teams maybe like the Cleveland Browns. New ownership coming in, playing better of late. Is that going to save their head coach's job? Then you have teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. You basically know Andy Reid is gone at the end of the season. Have they packed it in, or are they still going to play hard? So motivation is the key factor, and we'll hit on a number of those games today. Let's kick it off with the first game, Indianapolis and Tennessee. Colts last week, a magnificent comeback win at Detroit. Andrew Luck just continues to amaze, overcame the miserable interception performance last week with 4 key touchdowns, including the game winner late in the contest as they won that game. Now, in the season's first go-round between these two teams, it was Luck throwing a touchdown pass to Vic Ballard in overtime that lifted the Colts as a 3.5-point road dog to the 19-13 overtime victory. Now they're back at home, coming off the Lions' win at Ford Field last week. They have won and covered 4 straight at home. They are 5-1 straight up and against the spread at home this season. Luck at home this year, 9 touchdown passes, only 3 interceptions. And he's going to be facing a Tennessee pass defense that is among the worst in the league. Ranked 25th, but listen, opposing quarterbacks are giving up 69% completions. They've thrown 24 touchdown passes, only coming up with 10 interceptions at secondary of the Titans. They have failed to cover 7 consecutive games in division play. And of course, last week, they lost 24-10 at home to Houston. 6 turnovers in that game as Jake Locker continues to struggle. He was picked off 3 times in that contest. I say go ahead, lay the points with Indy here. Yeah, it's a 5.5. It's probably going to go to 6 some places by game time, but it doesn't matter. Listen, guys, before I get to the next game, which is going to be a good one, Washington and Baltimore, can the Redskins remain red hot? I want to tell you about a free fantasy football contest we're running over at PickNation.com. It's run in conjunction with DraftStreet.com. It is free to enter. $500 in total prize money, and the top 20 finish in the money. $125 first prize. But there's a little twist here. And remember, if you played free last week, if you played free 2 weeks ago, you can play free again this week as well. It doesn't matter. But here's the twist. Normally, it's what you call a salary cap league, where you get a mythical $100,000 bankroll and you're playing GM, drafting players, putting them in their spots. But this week, it's a different type. It's a pick'em league. DraftStreet.com, who we run this contest in conjunction with, they have created a pick'em league. There are 8 tiers of players. You have to pick one player from each tier to complete your roster. the way I look at it, guys, if you've never played fantasy football before, this is a great way to get into it because you don't have to sit there with your calculator and figure out your salary cap ramifications. Instead, you're picking your favorite player from each one of the 8 tiers, and that's how you're comprising your team. And remember, this is not like your father's fantasy league football where you had to wait till the end of January to get your payoff. This is decided after the Monday night game between, oh, that little game between, you know, Texans and the Patriots. So Tuesday, you're going to know who won. Again, $500 total prize money, $125 first place prize money, top 20 finish in the money. Check it out over at picknation.com. It is free to enter. Next game, Washington and Baltimore. We saw what the Redskins did on Monday night against the Giants, pulling off the upset. They are coming into this contest with 3 straight wins, all against division rivals, beating the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys, of course, back on Thanksgiving. But keep in mind, Washington 2-8-2 against the spread. Their last dozen home games outside of the NFC East. And they've only covered 1 of their last 6 against the AFC. The Ravens, of course, gave up a game that they should have won last week against Pittsburgh. And what really struck me in that box score was how the Steelers outgained the Ravens in Baltimore, 366 to 288 in total yardage, and the Ravens lost to a guy who's probably going to be hanging up his spikes at the end of the season, a third-string journeyman in Charlie Batch. Now, I know the Redskins have played good ball, but I think this is a must-win situation for the Ravens. Can Joe Flacco get the job done on the road? Well, he certainly hasn't performed that well all season outside of Baltimore. Just 4 touchdown passes on the road this season. This is a team that struggled at San Diego, needing a miracle 4th and 29 play to come back for the win. This is a team that barely beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Yet, in this game, I think the public is all over the Redskins. I say, in this particular game, you go against the public and you back Baltimore as a road dog. Next up, Atlanta and Carolina. Remember when these two met at the Georgia Dome earlier this season? Carolina shoulda, coulda, and woulda won that game if not for Matt Ryan's heroics near the end. Remember, he dropped back in the end zone, 59-yard pass in the final minute of play to Roddy White to eventually set up in 5 plays a field goal, a winning field goal by Matt Bryant to give them the victory in that contest. Well, now we've got the rematch. We've got the Falcons, who haven't really been putting anybody away, laying 3.5 points. So you've got to look at that number and you've got to say, is this a trap? Well, I mean, this is a Carolina team, guys, that specializes in coughing up fourth-quarter leads. This is a Carolina team that last week lost at Kansas City. I don't know what to tell you in this particular game. I think it's one of the worst games on the board. I can tell you this, however. Carolina has just 4 quarterback sacks in the last 4 games. You give Matt Ryan plenty of time back there in the pocket, and he is going to shred you. I can also tell you the Panthers have only covered twice in their last 10 home games, and also the Panthers have been struggling stopping the run. 176 yards on the ground each of the last 3 games. That's their average yield. But as we know, the Falcons have been unable to consistently run the ball this season. It could be a trap, but I would go with Atlanta if you put a gun to my head. Next one, Tampa and Philadelphia. Here's an interesting thing. I was in Tampa last weekend, so obviously I was watching this game with everybody else. Unfortunately for everybody else, I was cheering for the Denver Broncos because they were my best bet last week. And, of course, you saw what Peyton Manning did, rallying his troops from a 10-7 halftime deficit to the win. Didn't necessarily get the cover. That game was 7.5 early last Sunday, went off at 8, so a lot of people ended up with a push. Not me, not my clients, because I got it at 7.5, told you to buy down the half point for insurance. But hey, that was yesterday's news. Here's the thing, though, that I brought out from that game. Do you realize the Buccaneers are 0-6 this year when facing Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Tony Romo, RG3? But they're 6-0 when they took on Cam Newton and Brady Quinn and Carson Palmer and Christian Ponder twice and Phillip Rivers. Well, today they're finding themselves going up against Nick Foles, who's been handed the starting quarterback duties for the rest of the seasons for the Eagles, who aren't going anywhere. That's for darn sure. It's his 4th pro start, 4th in a row. Well, which one of those 2 categories do you think Nick Foles is going to belong in, the 0-6 or the 6-0 category? Exactly. Listen, we saw last week that Tampa had problems with Denver, as I told you they would, because the Buccaneers entered that contest, as they do this one, with the #1 rushing defense in the league and the #32 passing attack. Now, the Eagles' offensive line has gotten better the past 2 weeks, and Bryce Brown, the rookie, who really didn't play any college ball, had a cup of coffee, maybe half a cup at Kansas State, okay? He has been phenomenal replacing Shady McCoy, who's been out with a concussion. But is he going to be able to run effectively on the grass against the #1 rushing defense in the league? That means the pressure is going to be on Nick Foles. This is a must-win game for the Buccaneers, who I told you at the beginning of the show, they are on the heels trailing Seattle for that final NFC wild card spot. I think it's a good spot to take them. Listen, since the Eagles and Andy Reid filed Juan Castillo earlier this season, naming Todd Bowles as the replacement defensive coordinator, since then they've also gotten rid of Jason Babin, who had 18 sacks a year ago, gotten rid of the wide 9 this week, and when they got rid of their defensive line coach, Jim Washburn, after last week's loss. They have made all types of changes, and the fact is the defense has gone down the tubes. Since they fired Juan Castillo, their former defensive coordinator, well, hell, this defense, especially the pass defense, has given up 75% completions, 243 passing yards a game. The secondary, which has been pathetic all season long, has been scorched, giving up 13 touchdown passes, coming up with 0 interceptions in all those contests. And you got Josh Freeman, who at home has 10 TD passes, 2 interceptions, averaging 280 yards and 62% completions. I think the Buccaneers are going to roll here in a double-digit round. And you know the one thing with the Buccaneers, they do not let up no matter whether they're down or whether they have a lead. And that's what you want when you're laying big points with a chalk, especially at home. So Tampa is going to be the play in this one. Listen, guys, I also want to tell you over at picknation.com today, I have my biggest play of my career in the NFL. Normally, my plays are rated, 99% of them, between 5 and 15 dimes. Today, I have an ultra-rare 30-dime release. I've had 9 of them in my career. I've hit 8 out of 9 in the NFL. I've got one going today. You can save $20 on the purchase price of this play simply by going to picknation.com and using this coupon code. It's going to be an easy one, guys. It's going to be AL20, AL20. You enter that when prompted, AL20, no space between my first name and the number 20. You enter that when prompted, you'll save $20 off the biggest play of my career. It goes today in the NFL, once again at picknation.com, AL20, AL20, and you can get it and save $20 in the process. Next up, San Francisco and Miami. Well, I'll tell you what, as long as the 49ers don't play the Rams anymore, I don't think there's any problems here. Colin Kaepernick, he struggled in the overtime loss in San Francisco, the overtime tie when he replaced the injured Alex Smith, and he struggled in the overtime loss last week at St. Louis. Otherwise, you know, he took care of business against the Saints and the Bears. Why shouldn't he do the same against the Miami Dolphins? San Francisco, 19 quarterback sacks in the last 5 games. That's not going to make Ryan Tannehill playing behind a battered offensive line too happy today. Meanwhile, the Miami offense, well, there hasn't been any offense. 5 touchdowns responsible by the offense in the last 4 weeks. San Francisco on a 19-6-1 ATS run at home. So I don't care that the Dolphins have covered 7 of their last 9 as a road dog. I do know this, as a double-digit dog this year, one other time, they lost 30-10 at Houston. I think you can see a repeat performance in this one. Go with San Francisco. I have no qualms with laying the points in this one. Next game for you is going to be the contest as we head to New Orleans and the New York Giants. The Giants 8-19 against the spread. Their last 27 as a home favorite. But of course, the Giants are coming off the road, lost Monday night to the Redskins. This is a pretty important game, I'd say, for Eli and company here. The Saints, after the hullabaloo of their big comeback to get back to 500, they've now lost 2 straight games. They need to win today if they want to keep their postseason aspirations alive. Here's an interesting thing I think a lot of guys focus on. You know, the Saints defense has been pathetic all season long. We know that. They have the number 30 pass defense in the league. Well, just keep one thing in mind. The Redskins entered that Monday night game with the number 31 pass defense in the league. Did the Giants win that one? No. I think the key in this contest is going to be whether or not the Giants can establish the run. You have to establish the run against the Saints. The longer you keep Drew Brees on the bench, the better off you are. Unless, of course, he decides he wants to throw 5 interceptions again, or 2 that are returned as pick 6, as he's done the last couple of weeks. Here's the deal. Amon Bradshaw, rested, coming off a 100-yard effort against Washington on Monday night. Saints, number 32 in the league. There's only 32 teams, guys, in rushing defense, giving up 154 yards a game, 5.1 yards per carry. Bradshaw has success. Eli Manning all the more dangerous. Cheap price for the better team. And don't discount revenge. Remember what happened last year? The Saints hammered the Giants at the Superdome, 49-24. You think Big Blue forgot about that? No way. Go with the Giants. Final game here for your card is going to be Seattle, -10 at home against Arizona. Well, last week, you know, the Cardinals once again started Ryan Lindley in that 7-6 loss to the Jets. I guess after 5 first downs on 137 total yards, they decided, well, so much with Lindley, let's go back to John Skelton. Now, remember, this is a revenge spot for the Seahawks, who lost their season opener to Arizona. Hard to believe, right? Since then, what have the Cardinals done? Well, they've lost 8 straight games. They've only averaged 11.5 points in that 8-game losing streak. Meanwhile, I was very impressed with Seattle last week, coming up with the 23-17 overtime win at Chicago. 459 total yards for them against a very good Bears defense. And Russell Wilson, his best game on the road this year, 23 for 37, 293 yards, and a couple of touchdown passes in that contest. But now Seattle's back at home, where they are 5-0 straight up and against the spread this season. They've got they've got that hard pass rush that's going to take care of an Arizona offensive line that has given up 50 sacks this season. It doesn't matter who's quarterbacking for Arizona. Cardinals are going down in this one. Again, Seattle -10, go ahead and lay it. Now remember, guys, you can also get my daily free picks over at picknation.com by checking out my daily video report. Remember last weekend, I hit 4 out of 5 for you in college and pro football with the free selections. The week before that, oh gee, I only went 7-1 that week. You get them all backed by in-depth analysis over at picknation.com. And remember, today, Sunday, biggest play of my career, rare 30-dime release. It's just a measure of unit of measure, guys. What you have to remember, I've had 9 of them in my career. I've hit 8 of them, and you can save $20 off the purchase price over at picknation.com. Good luck to you all, and I will catch you again here on Monday on foxsports.com with the Monday night version of our Countdown to Kickoff program.